Hey, Dub Nation. Exclusive and straight to the point tonight. I've got a clean read on why the Warriors are exploring a veteran five who can screen, pass, and stretch just enough to calm our half-court and stabilize second units, and how that choice fits everything we've seen in the opening week. I'll walk you through the role, the minute map, the cap math, the risk, the reward, and the timing windows, and only in the final stretch I'll land the headline you came for with the latest status. Along the way, I'll show you how this would change Steph's life in two actions we run every game, how it lets Draymond conserve energy for closing time, why it makes sense even after a strong start versus the Lakers, and what it means for the development lane of our young bigs. Stay with me to the end, because I want you to weigh in before we lock our next breakdown, and I'm asking for your opinion on the package you'd actually be willing to send. Quick ask before we dive. Like the video and subscribe to Warriors News Fan Report so you're not catching these updates a day late when the market already moves. Let's start with basketball, not buzz, because the tape is the reason this idea is on the table. Our half-court identity is still Curry gravity plus read and react in the split game, and when that slows, we default to late clock creation that puts a lot on Steph's legs. A big who can set a real screen, catch at the elbow, and hit a free throw line jumper unclutters two of our staple looks, 21 series pick and roll with an early drag into pistol, and horn split where Steph or Jimmy Butler flows off a DHO the defense can't switch cleanly. Right now, our screening angles are fine, but the pop threat is inconsistent, so teams sit a foot deeper on Steph, top block our cutters, and recover. A center like Nikola Vucevic changes that spacing without asking him to be prime Clay off the catch. You don't need 40% from three, you need enough respect so the weak side tagger hesitates. And that half-second is the difference between a clean step-in three for Steph or Butler and a late contest grind. On top of that, Vooch is a good handler in DHOs and a willing passer from the elbows, which brings back a version of the Bogut-era hub without losing the modern pick-and-pop read. Think about the micro-actions we run all night. Chicago action to the empty corner into split. If your five can make the touch pass on time and threaten the 17-footer, the corner defender can't fully commit to the cutter. So the low man has to play honest, and suddenly your second side cut is open again. And if the defense top locks, the backdoor is automatic because the elbow passer will hit it. This is the boring stuff that wins in April and May. And on the glass, we've been fine, not great. A sturdy defensive rebounder who ends possessions with two hands lets us run after makes and misses, not just off stops where Draymond does everything. That reduces stress on our transition D and keeps Steph from having to crash down to the dotted line every other trip. Defense is the obvious question, and I'll answer it clearly. The Warriors' best identity is still switchy and loud, with Draymond quarterbacking help and our guards hunting deflections. Vooch is not a switch, everything five, but that doesn't kill the fit. It just changes the base for certain lineups. You can play a conservative drop with weak calls to push handlers to their offhand, have the low man tag early, and pre-rotate the corner if the matchup demands it. This is not theoretical. We already toggle coverages opponent by opponent, and Draymond is elite at early help, then short closeouts. The key is the guard at the point of attack fighting over screens and bothering pull-ups, and the backline communication cleaning the nail. You don't bring in Vucevic to be a shot blocker. You bring him in to eat defensive rebounds, wall off the lane, and force mid-range proficiency over volume. In late-game minutes when we need maximum switchability, we still close small if we want. Draymond at the 5, Butler at the 4, Steph plus 2 wings. But in the first 40 minutes, you conserve Draymond's body by letting Vooch take the pounding, and you carry an extra timeout worth of energy into clutch time. That's how you protect a veteran core and keep legs late in the week on road trips. Now let's talk lineups you will actually see if this happens. Starting Group 1, Steph, Butler, Wiggins, Draymond, Vucevic, with early horns to test the mid-post. That gives you Butler as the pressure valve when Steph sits and lets Wiggins slash off weak side cuts instead of living on self-created middies. Second unit stagger, Butler plus Kuminga with Vooch as the elbow hub, two shooters running Iverson into a DHO, and Kuminga cutting through the lane. If the tag pulls from the corner, the kick is there. If the big stays attached, Kuminga gets a dunk. Steph plus Vooch minutes are where the numbers will pop because Steph will see cleaner pull-ups, and the Spain pick and roll becomes a real weapon again if we place Wiggins or a shooter on the back screen. The third group is the small defensive lineup where Vooch sits and we switch everything. The beauty is you don't lose that identity. You just don't ask it to carry 48 minutes. And for fans worried about Kevon Looney and the young bigs, this move doesn't erase anyone. Looney becomes the situational anchor against bully ball lineups, and the kids still get real minutes on schedule games and back-to-backs because preserving legs is the plan. A veteran 5 doesn't block development if the staff is honest with roles. It actually gives cleaner game scripts where the second unit knows who the hub is. The cap-and-trade mechanics are where people get tangled, so I'm going to keep it plain. Vucevic is on mid-tier veteran money that lives around the $20 million range and is in the final guaranteed runway of his deal, expiring at the end of this season. That makes him both playable now and flexible later. To get there, you need matching salary and you need to respect the Stepien rule and the new apron limits. That usually means one of our mid-tier contracts plus a secondary piece and draft assets with protections that match our window. If Chicago wants value, they'll ask for a first and a swap, maybe a young player. If the market is cooler, seconds can get it done with the right salary. None of that is crazy, and it doesn't touch Steph or Butler or Draymond. What you don't do is pay like it's 2021 when every stretch 5 was gold. The league has learned. Bigs who space and rebound are valuable, but the price is set by fit and contract length. The reason this conversation is warm is because the price lines up with what we can responsibly do without gutting depth. And yes, Wiggins is the straightforward matching contract if the organization decides his role overlaps too much with Butler's usage and Kuminga's growth. But there are other paths if Chicago prefers expiring money and seconds. The key is protecting our pick flexibility for the bigger fish everyone always asks about while still fixing the exact issue we have today. Let's layer in form and timing because this isn't fantasy trade machine talk. We started the season with a professional road win in LA, did the simple things right, and showed that the Butler addition can stabilize late-game execution. That doesn't mean you stop improving. Denver is next, and then the schedule bends, and that's when rosters with clean rebounding and foul control start stacking wins. If the Warriors make a move for a center, the best window is before the market hardens around December, when teams decide if they're in or out. You want new pieces to get 25 or 30 games with the group before the push. Adding a read and react 5 early lets him learn our terminology, our hand signals, and the small tells Steph and Draymond give each other. It's not plug and play no matter how smart the player is. Our split game is taught, not improvised. The earlier you integrate, the fewer blown timings you suffer in March. Now, the basketball impact in simple terms for the stars. For Steph, a big who screens wide and threatens the pop means one more clean pull-up per quarter and a couple of early clock triples off drag screens when defenses can't load up. For Butler, you get a calm post-up outlet when teams switch and you need to punish a mismatch without burning a timeout. You also unlock more Spain actions where Butler sets the back screen and then pops to 15 feet for a catch at the nail. For Draymond, it's energy allocation. Fewer minutes at the 5 against brick walls, more minutes as the backline chaos agent who breaks actions and calls out rotations. His steal and deflect game stays sharp when he's not wrestling every possession. For Kuminga, you get a cleaner runway because the elbow hub will actually look for his cuts, and short roll passes turn into lobs if the weak side sleeps. For the bench, the identity stops yo-yoing because there's a clear anchor to play through when Steph sits. The turnover count drops when the ball goes through a center who can hand back, fake the handoff, and hit the back door before the defense resets. This is what wins on a Wednesday in Charlotte as much as it wins in a Sunday ABC game. The little stuff evens out the week. Risk and downside are real, so let's be adults about them. Vooch is not a rim eraser, so your guards have to be sharp at the point of attack, and your game plan needs to dictate which mid-range shooters you live with. There will be matchups we simply don't play him late, and that has to be communicated from day one so no one is guessing. On offense, you can't force touches to justify a trade. You use him as a hub when the game says, run elbow, And you get out of the way when Steph is cooking. The other risk is the opportunity cost. If you spend a first and a young piece, you are saying, this core plus this fit can make a Western Conference run right now. And you're probably right, but you're also saying no to a different path in February. The way you solve that is by setting protections that don't bankrupt the future and by refusing to add your best prospect unless the market forces you. This front office has done that before and will do it again. The point here is not to chase headlines. It's to buy cleaner basketball for 18 minutes a night and preserve legs for the last 5. Fit against top West teams is the next test we have to pass on paper. Denver punishes you with Jokic's angles and Murray's two-man game, a center who won't be thrown off by a bruising post-up and who can make him work on the other end with pick-and-pops and elbows is useful. You're not stopping Jokic. You're forcing him to guard actions and think on defense. Minnesota brings size and length. Against them, you want a center who can put Gobert in space on the perimeter a few possessions and make spacing choices loud. Dallas and Oklahoma City will spam pick and roll and empty corner looks. The more you win the first 2 dribbles on the ball, the more a conservative drop with strong low-man help holds. Phoenix is about handling cross matches in early offense. A veteran big who doesn't panic on scrambles saves you a run or two. The point is not that Vucevic solves every matchup. The point is that he helps you handle the average night better and frees you to choose the correct closing group without chasing the game. A regular season is a math problem, and a steady 18 to 28-minute center who rebounds, screens, and passes helps you solve it. Let's also be honest about our current center rotation and where this addition would sit. Looney gives you reliability, angles, and offensive boards. The young bigs give you juice and flashes. A veteran who can score 12, rebound 10, and pass 3 or 4 on steady diet takes the pressure off all of them. You can still go small in clutch with Draymond at the 5. You can still play Looney in matchups where the hand-to-hand combat matters. You can still feed the kids when the schedule allows. What you don't do is ask Draymond to survive 82 games at the 5 and still be fresh for May. That's not a plan. That's a hope. Adding Vucevic is a plan. We should also hit chemistry because this locker room has personalities and a way of doing things. Veteran bigs who move the ball and don't fight over touches tend to fit our room. Steph and Draymond respect guys who know where to be and how to talk on defense. Butler will appreciate a 5 who clears him a lane and doesn't float above the break when the action calls for a dive. The message to everyone has to be crystal. Roles are real, and closing minutes are earned. No posturing, just basketball. If that's agreed on, this is smooth. Development check. Does this block Kuminga? No, it helps him. Cutters feed off elbow hubs. Guards who cut with timing get rewarded by pass first 5s. If your big can hit you on the back door, you keep cutting. If he can't, you start standing. We want more of the first. And for Moses Moody and Brandon Podziemski-type minutes, a calm hub reliquefies the second unit so their reads are easier. Young guards need guardrails. A veteran 5 is a guardrail. Timeline and decision dates, so you have a map. Early season is when conversations start and frameworks get tested. Once we hit the first week of December, teams make calls. After mid-December, when more contracts become trade eligible, the board changes. If the Warriors want a head start, a move before New Year's means a longer runway for integration. The deadline is the last resort, not the plan. Because you don't want a big learning hand signals in late February while you're trying to chase seeding. I'd prefer the earlier runway. And yes, the Stepien rule means you can't send out back-to-back firsts without swaps and protections. That's standard now. You protect the future and still make your team better today. Money and future flexibility. Bottom line, Vucevic's contract size is big enough to matter for matching but short enough to keep clean books. You're not digging a cap hole for 3 or 4 more years. You're choosing to pay for a specific upgrade during Steph's still elite window and then you redecide in the summer. If it works, you can chase continuity at a number that makes sense or pivot if a bigger fish becomes realistic. You don't make this move to be stuck. You make it to be better right now and to keep options open later. Let me address the "why not a different big" argument. Because it's fair. There are shot blockers and vertical spacers out there, and I get the appeal. The reason Vucevic is specifically interesting is because he checks 3 boxes for this system: reliable screening, real elbow passing, and enough shooting to pull a big out of the lane. You could chase a pure rim runner and solve a different problem. But our offense is a read tree, not a spam the roll plan. An elbow passer speeds up our reads and protects the ball. On defense, we've already accepted that we're more about creating turnovers and cleaning the glass than we are about living at the rim with a 7-2 eraser. Vooch fits that theory better than a pogo stick 5 who can't pass. This is about system fit, not just highlight value. All right, you've stayed for the details, so here's the update as promised. Clean and simple. The Warriors have identified Nikola Vucevic as a realistic veteran center target because the price range and contract timeline align with what we can responsibly move. The basketball fit is strong in our horns and split game, and the move would ease regular season workload on Draymond while sharpening Steph's early clock looks. Internal conversations are pointed at frameworks that make sense without touching the top of the core. And the sense I'm getting is that this is one of the very few center moves that actually passes both the tape test and the cap test. No fireworks announced tonight, but the lane is open, the timing makes sense, and if the number is right, this is the kind of veteran ad that can lift our floor without capping our ceiling. That's the headline. Before we close, I want to hear from you because this channel lives on smart fans who watch every possession. Would you send a protected first and a salary-matching wing for Vucevic? Or would you hold the pick and ride Looney plus small ball until the buyout market? Do you prefer a vertical rim threat instead? And if so, who actually fits our system and minutes without breaking the bank? In closing groups, are you comfortable sitting Vooch if the matchup demands switch everything? Or do you want him out there for the glass even if the switches get tested? Drop your answers below and keep it direct because I'll use your takes to set the next video's focus. My final read, concise and professional so we can land the plane. This move makes basketball sense and calendar sense. It gives Steph cleaner shots, gives Butler an easy outlet, gives Draymond a breather, and gives the bench a real hub. It doesn't trap the cap, it doesn't force us into a single closing identity, and it upgrades the boring possessions that decide road games in February. If you're in, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. If you want an alternative plan, leave the package you'd offer and the player you'd target, and I'll break down the pros and cons with the same level of detail in the next upload. This is Warriors News Fan Report, built for fans who want the why behind the what, and we're just getting started this season.